Welcome. We're glad you're here for a deep dive today. We're going to explore something that might really challenge how you think about commitment, about sacrifice, and, well, what it really means to follow a path with purpose.
Absolutely. Today, September 7th, 2025, we're looking at some ancient wisdom that feels incredibly relevant right now.
It really does. We've got insights from a daily devotion, some powerful texts, wisdom, Psalms, a letter from Paul, and, a pretty challenging gospel passage from Luke.
Indeed. And our goal, our mission today is really to unpack all of this. We want to understand what it truly means to, count the cost of a deep, wholehearted commitment.
Right. And this isn't just some history lesson.
No, not at all. It's about figuring out priorities in your own life, understanding the core idea behind making those big, maybe life-altering choices.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with that foundational idea from Psalm 37.5.
Yeah, that's a good place. Commit your life to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act.
See, on the surface, that sounds, comforting, doesn't it? Like a clear instruction.
It does. But then our other sources, they quickly take us somewhere much more radical, even startling.
Yeah, like in Luke 14, Jesus is talking to these huge crowds, and his words are just, wow, intense. He actually says, if anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple.
That word, hating.
It just jumps out at you, right? It's not exactly a gentle invitation. It feels really stark, almost confrontational.
It does. And understanding the context there, the meaning of that language is so important.
So it's not literal hate.
Definitely not. It's not about feeling actual animosity towards your family or yourself. It's a rhetorical device, really. Hyperbole.
Okay.
It's this powerful way of emphasizing that following Jesus demands absolute, completely unparalleled priority, like nothing else comes close.
So placing God above everything, all those relationships, attachments, even your own self-preservation.
Exactly. No matter how close or how cherished they are, it's about this singular devotion, a total reordering of your loyalties. The emphasis is all on the degree of commitment required.
That reframing hate meaning ultimate priority, that helps. But, let's be honest, even knowing it's hyperbole, it still feels incredibly challenging.
Oh, absolutely.
How does this kind of priority work in the real world? We're always juggling so much family, work, just trying to stay sane. Is it about just dropping everything, or is it more about, strategically reordering things?
That's the tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not about actual hatred, but the priority shift is so profound that, by comparison, other loves might look like hate. It demands this deep realignment of where your ultimate allegiance lies.
And is that a one-time decision? Or something else?
Well, that brings us to the daily devotion we looked at. It connects this idea directly to ongoing sacrifice. It says, true discipleship means placing God above all else, even when it is difficult.
Even when it's difficult.
Right, and it calls us to carry our cross daily with love and perseverance.
Daily. Okay, so it's not just one big dramatic moment. It's woven into everyday life.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process. The commitment itself is this continuous, loving act. It takes consistent effort.
And the devotion mentions a reward.
It does. It says this kind of unwavering commitment leads to an eternal reward that far surpasses worldly attachments. So it sets up this really clear contrast, fleeting things versus lasting spiritual gain.
Implying the sacrifice is worth it.
The payoff is seen as infinitely greater. It's about adopting that long-term eternal perspective on things.
Okay, so we have this immense, really radical call to commitment. Prioritize God above everyone, everything, carry a cross daily. It sounds huge.
It is huge.
How can ordinary people like us, mere mortals, even begin to understand this or undertake it? We feel so limited sometimes, right? So caught up in just daily stuff. It almost feels impossible, that kind of singular focus.
And that feeling, that sense of limitation is actually addressed directly in the Book of Wisdom, chapter 9.
Oh, right. What does it say?
It speaks right to our human limitations, our finite understanding. It asks, who can know God's counsel? Or who can conceive what the Lord intends?
Yeah.
For the deliberations of mortals are timid, and unsure are our plans. It even talks about how our corruptible body burdens the soul, and the earthen shelter weighs down the mind that has many concerns.
Wow. That's a pretty honest assessment of the human condition.
It is. It's a deep acknowledgement of just how hard it is for us to grasp the divine.
It really lays out that struggle, doesn't it? Even with things right in front of us, the text says, scarce do we guess the things on earth, and what is within our grasp we find with difficulty.
Exactly.
So if we struggle with earthly things, things we can see and touch, how on earth could we possibly figure out things in heaven? It really hammers home that feeling of limitation.
That sets up the crucial point. It doesn't just leave us there feeling limited.
Okay.
It says the paths on earth are made straight only when God had given wisdom and sent your Holy Spirit from on high.
So it's not all on us.
Right. It acknowledges that, yes, commitment is required from our side, but the ultimate insight, the ability to actually follow such a demanding path, that comes from a divine source. It's not just about human effort or willpower or how smart we are.
We need help. Divine assistance.
Precisely. Help to overcome those inherent limitations.
And then there's Psalm 90, which kind of doubles down on this human limitation idea, but maybe from a different angle, the whole fleeting nature of life thing.
Exactly. It's such a powerful reminder. You turn man back to dust, saying, "Return, O children of men," and then for 1,000 years in your sight are as yesterday.
Like time just vanishes.
Yeah, you make an end of them in their sleep. The next morning they're like the changing grass, which at dawn springs up anew, but by evening wilts and fades.
Such a vivid picture. Here today, gone tomorrow, like grass.
And that very transience, that briefness of life, it underscores the urgency, doesn't it? The need to live meaningfully with real purpose.
Because time is short.
Right, so knowing our time is limited should theoretically drive us to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And that makes the Psalms plea so critical. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain wisdom of heart.
Number our days aright. Gain wisdom of heart.
That wisdom, that's what helps us navigate this incredibly demanding path of commitment, especially when our own understanding feels shaky and our lives seem so short. It gives perspective. It helps prioritize what truly lasts.
So, okay, we've got this huge call to commitment, but we're also reminded we're frail, our time is short, our understanding limited. It feels a bit like a paradox.
It does, doesn't it?
How do we bridge that gap? Does Jesus give us any, practical advice, a roadmap for actually making such a monumental decision without being totally overwhelmed?
Well, yes, actually. This brings us back to Luke 14 and those parables about counting the cost.
The tower builder and the king going to war.
Exactly. Jesus tells these two stories that really drive home the need for, let's say, rational assessment. Foresight. You don't just jump into something this big.
He's advising a measured approach then, not just pure blind faith.
It seems so. He's saying, think it through.
Okay, we know those parables. The guy building a tower, the king planning a battle. But for this deep dive on counting the cost, what's the specific takeaway? What's the fresh insight here?
Well, the insight isn't just knowing the stories. It's how starkly Jesus applies them to discipleship. Remember the tower builder. Which of you wishing to construct a tower does not first sit down and calculate the cost?
Right, to see if he has enough to finish. Otherwise, people will laugh.
Exactly. And the king going to war, he has to first sit down and decide if his 10,000 troops can actually take on 20,000. If not, he needs to seek peace.
So these aren't just cozy stories.
Not at all. They're direct challenges against, reckless or impulsive commitment. They demand this realistic, sober evaluation of what you're signing up for and what it will require.
It sounds like a really demanding path, definitely not for the faint of heart, but thinking about that counting the cost idea, is there a danger there? Could someone get, paralyzed by fear? Never actually start because the cost just feels too high.
That's a really important point. And yeah, that's a potential risk. But I think the parables aren't meant to paralyze. They're meant to clarify.
How so?
By encouraging honesty. Be honest about what this commitment truly involves, so that when you choose it, you go in with eyes wide open, with a realistic understanding of the resources, spiritual, emotional, practical, whatever, that you'll need.
So it's about a deliberate choice, a well-considered commitment, understanding the full implications before you start.
Precisely. And then Jesus wraps up these parables with that really powerful statement. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple.
Renounce all possessions, that sounds drastic too.
It does, but again, context is key. It's likely not just about physical stuff like your house or your money, though that could be part of it for some.
So
it seems to be about a complete willingness to let go of anything. Possessions, yes, but also attachments, relationships, as we discussed, personal preferences, ambitions, maybe even your own life, as he said earlier. Anything that would get in the way of that absolute commitment.
After you've carefully counted the cost.
Exactly. It's about achieving this state of readiness, of detachment, having fully considered the radical nature of the path.
Okay, this idea of deep commitment, renunciation, carrying a cross daily, it can feel quite abstract, theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
How does this actually play out in the real world with real relationships? Because often the deepest sacrifices, the hardest renunciations are personal, aren't they? Relational.
That's very true. And this is where the letter to Philemon, which often comes up in church readings around now, gives us such a beautiful, tangible example.
Ah, Philemon. Paul and the runaway slave, Onesimus.
Right. Paul describes himself as an old man and now also a prisoner for Christ Jesus. He's writing to Philemon about Onesimus, who had run away but had apparently become incredibly helpful and dear to Paul while Paul was imprisoned.
Paul calls him my child, my own heart. There's clearly a deep bond there.
A very deep bond. Paul is in prison. Onesimus is a comfort, a help. You'd think Paul would want to keep him there.
Makes sense. So what does Paul do given that personal attachment, that convenience?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Despite wanting to keep Onesimus, despite the personal cost, Paul makes this conscious, deliberate choice. He sends Onesimus back to Philemon.
He gives him up.
He does. It's a personal sacrifice for Paul. And why? Paul explicitly states the reason, so that Philemon's response, the good Philemon might do, would not be forced but voluntary.
Voluntary good, not coercion.
Exactly. It highlights the absolute essence of the kind of discipleship we've been talking about, a freely chosen act, springing from conviction, not from being pressured. Paul renounces his own preference, his own convenience, for this higher principle of voluntary action and ultimately transformed relationship.
And the transformation Paul asks for is, well, it's huge, isn't it? He tells Philemon to welcome Onesimus back, no longer as a slave, but more than a slave, a brother.
More than a slave, a brother. Think about that.
Yeah.
In that society, it's not just take him back. It's a call for a radical, almost unthinkable shift in perspective, from property to family, from ownership to love and equality.
It's a massive shift.
It really shows how these principles and renunciation, voluntary commitment, countering the cost, how they're meant to lead to real-world change, to forgiveness, to dignity, to elevating relationships.
And Paul's plea, if you regard me as a partner, welcome him as you would me.
Right. It embodies that selfless love, that acceptance that should flow from this kind of true cost-counted discipleship. It's a practical, feet-on-the-ground example of letting go of an attachment, the master-slave dynamic, for a higher, more loving reality. Seeing the person, the brother, not the status.
Wow. Okay. What a journey we've been on in this deep dive, from that radical call to commitment and sacrifice.
Exploring our human limits and the absolute need for divine wisdom.
Understanding why we need to count the cost, practically.
And then seeing it all come together in the story of Paul, Philemon, and Onesimus, the power of voluntary love and action.
So as we wrap up, where does this leave you, our listener, today?
Well, like we said, it's not just history. It's really an invitation. A chance to look at your own life, your own commitments. The daily devotion we mentioned asks that really pointed question.
A practical one.
Yeah. What is one attachment I can let go of today to follow Jesus more faithfully? Something concrete you might consider.
But maybe there's something even deeper.
I think so. Building on everything we've discussed, the need for wisdom, the fleeting nature of time, the call to voluntary action, counting the cost, maybe a deeper question for you to really mull over is this.
Okay.
What does it truly mean for me right now to number my days aright? How can I align my plans, my priorities, with a genuine pursuit of wisdom and a readiness for that kind of voluntary, selfless action, as if my whole understanding of time and purpose actually depends on it?
Wow. That connects Psalm 90 with Luke's parables.
Exactly. That thought, rooted in both the urgency of the psalm and the practical realism of the gospel? Well, that's something profound for you to take away and explore on your own.